Welcome, sleepy traveler. You've arrived at a quiet space made just for you. My name is Valarie, and I am here to guide you gently into rest, to help ease your mind, soften your body, and drift you toward a peaceful, uninterrupted sleep. Whether your day was long or your thoughts feel a little too loud tonight, let this be your permission to slow down, to breathe, and to simply be. There's nothing more to do now. Just allow my voice to be your guide as we begin this gentle journey toward deep, nourishing rest. If you're new here, subscribe for sleep content like this, and like this video if you find it enjoyable. Let's begin. You've arrived in a quiet moment made just for you. Let your breath fall into a soft and natural rhythm. Tonight, there's nothing to do but rest. Allow your thoughts to drift like clouds across a quiet sky. The world can wait. This moment is yours. Feel your shoulders melt away from your ears. Your hands are soft, still, and at peace. There is no rush, only ease, only quiet. Each breath invites you deeper into calm. You're wrapped in safety and stillness, in warmth. Let your body grow heavier with each breath. Your jaw relaxes, your brow smooths, your eyes rest. Inhale calm, exhale release. The day has ended, and now it's your time to simply be. You're not alone. The night is keeping gentle watch. Let the hush of twilight guide you inward. The rhythm of your breath is your lullaby. There is nothing to fix, nothing to hold on to. You are free to drift, to soften, to let go. Sleep comes slowly, softly, just like this moment. Let the silence beneath each breath soothe your heart. You are safe, you are cared for, you are enough. Sink into comfort, sink into the now. You don't have to try, just be. Let the weight of the day dissolve beneath you. There is a quiet here that welcomes you home. The stars outside are glowing just for you. You are floating now in stillness, in peace. This breath and the next are leading you towards sleep. Let yourself become a feather drifting downward. Soften your hands, your feet, your face, even your thoughts. The world outside slows to a hush. And within you, a calm is blooming. You are part of this quiet. You are part of the night. You are exactly where you need to be. Notice how the breath moves through your chest, gently and slow, like waves meeting the shore, like dusk meeting the trees. Your body remembers what it means to rest, to be still, to be at ease. And now you allow it. Let each breath in soften your thoughts. Let each breath out carry away what you no longer need. No effort, just surrender. No pressure, only peace. The clock has stopped ticking. The lists are no longer calling. This moment is timeless. This night is yours. Drift deeper into the quiet. Let the softness cradle you. Let go of even trying to let go. Let stillness come to you like a warm breeze. Let it wrap around you like a well-loved blanket. Your body is safe. Your breath is your guide. You are floating on a gentle sea of sleep. And everything is okay. Even if today was hard. Even if your mind still wanders. Even if your heart feels tender. Tonight you are being held by the breath, by the quiet, by this gentle pause between days. The light has dimmed. The world is resting. And so can you. Let your breath sink lower, slower, smoother. Let it guide you toward dreams that wait with open hands. There is a silence here that understands you. There is a peace here that welcomes all of you. You are whole just as you are. Let the rhythm of night settle into your bones. Let sleep come like a soft tide, slowly rising. With each wave, you drift further. With each breath, you drift deeper. You are ready. You are safe. The story is about to begin. So close your eyes, soften your breath, and enjoy tonight's bedtime story. If you had told me a week ago that I'd find a glowing library inside a tree, of all places, I would have stammered something polite and gone back to nibbling rosehip biscuits in my burrow. But now I know better. Forests at dusk have their own secrets, and one very old oak had been keeping a marvelous one. My name is Thimble. I'm a field mouse, terribly shy, and small even by mouse standards. I live just beneath the brambles near the eastern stream, in a cozy burrow lined with crumpled pages of old storybooks. I collect them, you see, lost pages fluttering on the wind, tales smudged with rain, paragraphs left behind by forgetful hikers. There's something comforting in gathering words no one else seems to notice. Most evenings, I wrap myself in a daisy petal shawl and wander out as the sky starts to blush with twilight. I like the quiet rustle of dusk, the way the wind hushes the forest as if it too is settling in for a bedtime story. That particular evening began just the same, with me following a mossy path I'd never walked before, chasing the scent of clover and curiosity. Then I saw it. A soft golden glow, like candlelight trapped in honey, was spilling from the base of an old oak tree. The kind of tree you'd think was just sleepy and moss-covered, not magical. I blinked, rubbed my eyes with both paws. It was still there, flickering gently, inviting and mysterious. I crept closer, heart pounding like a drum made of dandelion fluff. The hollow at the base of the tree was just my size. I hesitated, tail twitching, nose quivering, then peered inside. Oh, stars above. It was a room. A tiny room tucked within the tree trunk, lit by tiny lanterns that glowed in hues of amber, sapphire, and rose gold. Books, actual books, not scraps or torn bits, lined the curved walls like a spiral staircase of stories. Scrolls rested in bundles tied with velvet thread. A ladder curved upward toward another level above, and it smelled like old pages, cinnamon bark, and lavender wax. "Good evening," came a voice, low and melodic, like nighttime wind in pine branches. I squeaked and nearly fell backward. From the upper perch descended an owl, not just any owl, a tall, elegant one with silvery feathers that shimmered like moonlight. She wore tiny half-moon glasses on the bridge of her beak and had a satchel slung over one wing. "I'm Aurelia," she said kindly, "keeper of the night library." I stood frozen, paws clasped over my chest, whiskers trembling. "Don't be afraid," she said gently. "No one stumbles in unless they're meant to." I'm Thimble," I managed. "I didn't mean to intrude. I was just the light." And then Aurelia chuckled, soft and wise. "Curious hearts often lead to the right doors. Come in, little one. You're just in time." "For what?" "The opening. The night library opens only at midnight." I glanced up. "But it's only just past twilight." She looked at me over her spectacles. "Then you have time to choose your first book." I stepped inside. The walls seemed to hum as I entered, the books glowing faintly as if greeting me. My paws patted across the soft moss floor, and I ran a tentative paw over the spine of a book titled "The Tale of the Stone Lantern." Another read "Moss and Memory, a Hedgehog's Guide to Dreaming." And yet another shimmered with no title at all, its pages humming with a quiet golden light. "There's a book for everyone," Aurelia said, setting down a tray of warm thistle tea and moonberry scones. "Sometimes several. The library has a way of knowing." I had so many questions I didn't know where to start. "Do you live here? How long has it been here? Why only midnight?" Aurelia settled onto a velvet cushion shaped like a toadstool. "Yes, I live here for now. I'm just one of many librarians through the ages. This place has always existed, though it's always changing. As for midnight," she sipped her tea, "that's when the world grows quiet enough to listen." I don't know how long I sat there, nibbling a scone, listening to the gentle sounds of flickering lanterns and rustling parchment. At some point, Aurelia handed me a small book. Its cover was soft, like pressed petals, and the title read, "The Mouse Who Carried Stars in His Pocket." "Perhaps you'd like to read aloud," she offered. My ears turned pink. "Oh, I'm not very good at reading out loud." She tilted her head. "It doesn't need to be perfect, only heartfelt." So I began. The story was about a little mouse who gathered fallen starlight and tucked it into the pockets of his coat to give to others when they were lost, lonely, or needed a little brightness. I read slowly, my voice quivering at first, but gaining strength with each page. When I looked up, Aurelia was smiling, and I realized something astonishing. I wasn't nervous anymore. Something about the room, about her, made me feel safe. Not just safe, but seen. As though every stutter, every shadow of fear was gently tucked away and replaced with soft light. When the story ended, Aurelia took the book and placed it reverently on a shelf marked Shared Readings. "Will it stay here?" I asked. "For others who need it," she said. "Every story leaves a little piece of its reader behind. That's how the library grows." We sat together in silence after that, the kind that feels warm and full. As midnight approached, something shifted. The lanterns glowed a little brighter, the books shimmered faintly, and outside the forest grew still. So still, even the leaves held their breath. A bell chimed softly from somewhere deep inside the tree, one single silvery note. The night library was open. Aurelia stood and bowed slightly. "You are welcome any time, Thimble. The door knows your paws now." "But will I always be able to find it?" She smiled, eyes gleaming like stars behind foggy lenses. "Only if you come with wonder in your heart." I left the hollow tree with a mind full of stories and a heart that felt impossibly wide. The forest was dark, but I didn't feel small in it anymore. I felt like part of something secret and shimmering. Back in my burrow, I lit a tiny lantern and set a blank page in front of me. And for the first time in my life, I began to write my own story. Because now I knew the truth. Books don't just belong in libraries. They also belong inside mice like me. I've never been good with crowds. Even a picnic with 3 other mice makes my paws fidget, and my voice vanish into the corners of my whiskers. So, when Aurelia mentioned the night library held weekly story hours, I smiled and nodded. But inside, I quietly told myself, "Oh no, I couldn't. That's for braver creatures." But the next night, as twilight swept over the forest like spilled ink, I found my paws leading me back to the hollow oak tree. I told myself I was just going to visit, maybe borrow another book, maybe sniff around the scroll section, nothing more. But as I padded softly along the moss-lined path, I could already see the golden light spilling from the base of the tree like melted stars. The hollow glowed warmer than before, and gentle voices drifted out, laughter, whispers, the sound of cushions being fluffed and paws or hooves or claws settling down. I hesitated at the entrance, clutching my little satchel made from a dried petal and a shoelace. Inside was the book Aurelia lent me the night before, The Mouse Who Carried Stars in His Pocket. I'd read it twice before sunrise, hugging it to my chest. Peeking in, I saw them, a circle of forest creatures nestled on moss cushions and woven mats. 2 rabbit kits with ears too big for their heads, a hedgehog with a daisy tucked behind one ear, even a trio of young foxes curled tail to tail in one corner, their eyes wide and curious. And there, perched on her velvet toadstool with her glasses slightly askew, was Aurelia. Her gaze met mine instantly. She smiled. Not the kind of smile that makes you feel on display, but the kind that says, "I saved you a spot." I took a deep breath, tail trembling, and stepped inside. A small cushion waited near the back, close to a bookcase that smelled of cedar and moonlight. I scurried over, ears burning, and curled myself onto the cushion, paws tucked tightly. No one turned or stared. No one laughed. The hedgehog even scooted slightly to make more space. Aurelia's voice rose through the hush like soft wind through leaves. "Tonight," she said, "we read the lantern keeper's dream." The room stilled. Even the fireflies nestled in their tiny lanterns above seemed to pause. She opened a large book with a deep green cover and edges that shimmered like morning dew. Her voice poured out smooth and steady, a low lullaby wrapped in story. In a village where the stars touched the rooftops, there lived a lantern keeper who lit the way for dreams. With every word, something shifted inside me. I didn't even notice when my shoulders relaxed or when my breathing slowed. I just listened. Listened and imagined. A cobbled village lined with glowing lanterns, each one holding a dream. A kind old badger who kept the flames burning and whispered gently to each flickering light. And one small dream that fluttered away, lost in the wind until it was found again. By someone who believed. The room was wrapped in spell work, but the magic wasn't loud. It was the kind that curled into your chest and made it feel like home. At one point I looked around. The fox kits were leaning against each other, eyes dreamy. One rabbit kit clutched the edge of his cushion like it was the bow of a ship. And the hedgehog? Her eyes shimmered like she'd been to that lantern-lit village before. And me? I felt something warm blooming in my chest, not just from the story, from being here, from not being alone, from feeling, maybe for the first time in a very long while, like I belonged. When Aurelia closed the book, a hush remained. No one rushed to speak. We all sat in it, the gentle ache of a story's end. Then, slowly, soft chatter resumed, as creatures stretched, yawned, and nibbled on honey-root biscuits left on a small tray near the scrolls. I lingered in the back, pawing the edge of my cushion, heart still tucked inside the pages of the story. Aurelia approached quietly and sat beside me. "Did you enjoy it, Thimble?" she asked, her eyes soft behind her spectacles. I nodded, my voice a whisper. "Very much." She reached into the folds of her satchel and pulled something out. It was a bookmark, not just any bookmark, but a tiny, perfect leaf, pressed flat and shaped like a feather, with golden veins running through it. A thread of silver silk was tied at the top. "For you," she said. "The first of many." I held it carefully, as if it might crumble from too much wonder. "Why a bookmark?" I asked. She smiled. "Because stories always find their way back to you." I turned the little leaf in my paws. It felt like a secret, one meant just for me. "Will there be more story hours?" I asked, already knowing I'd come back no matter what. "Every week," Aurelia replied, "and sometimes surprise readings when the moon is full." I tucked the bookmark into my satchel alongside my returned book. "Thank you," I said, "for letting me be here." She tilted her head. "You belong here, Thimble. Every listener shapes the story in their own quiet way." I left the library under a sky full of stars, the path back to my burrow lit by fireflies and the golden hums still curling through my fur. Each step felt lighter than the last. That night, I placed the leaf-shaped bookmark on my bedside shelf, right beside my candle stub and acorn cup. I didn't light the candle. I didn't need to. The story glowed inside me still, and for the first time in a long time, I slept with a small, sleepy smile on my face, knowing I wasn't just a field mouse who liked stories. I was part of one. I wasn't looking for anything magical that morning, just acorns. Crisp leaves crunched underfoot as I helped my neighbor, a jittery gray squirrel named Nutters, gather food for the coming cold. He had a habit of talking to himself while he worked, mostly muttering about which acorns were too smooth, which ones were show-offs, and which ones had the good crunch. I mostly just nodded and followed along, pulling my little cart behind me. We were near the east glade, where the roots of the old trees twist over one another like a basket. It's quiet there, even during the day, cool and mossy, with mushrooms peeking like pale moons from the shadows. I was tugging at a particularly stubborn acorn, half buried beneath some damp moss, when I saw it. Not an acorn, a scroll, tucked just barely between two thick roots, as if the tree had been hiding it. Its ends were curled, the ribbon frayed and faded, but the parchment itself shimmered faintly in the light, almost like morning dew catching sunbeams. I froze. Nutters was several hops ahead, still arguing with a pine cone. I leaned closer, brushing away the moss. A story scroll. I could feel it. Even before I touched it, something about it whispered story. Not just words, but weight. The kind of quiet importance that settles into your pause. I picked it up as gently as I could. It was smaller than the scrolls I'd seen at the night library, and older. The edges were dusted with time. On the ribbon was a faded symbol, an owl feather over a crescent moon, Aurelia's mark. My heart fluttered. This scroll didn't just belong to the night library. It came from it. Maybe from years ago, maybe from someone who borrowed it and forgot, or someone who meant to return it and never got the chance. And now here it was, waiting. Nutters popped up beside me, his tail twitching. "What's that you've got?" I hid the scroll instinctively behind my back. "Just, moss." He squinted at me. "Nice moss," he muttered, then scampered off again. "Don't forget to bring your own crunch snacks next time." I clutched the scroll tightly, hardly noticing the rest of the acorn gathering. My thoughts buzzed like a hive full of fireflies. The scroll had to go back. That much was clear. By the time dusk dipped the forest in soft blues and silvers, I had the scroll wrapped in my softest, thimble-sized handkerchief and tucked into a nest of clover in my satchel. I barely touched my dinner, just a nibble of oat biscuit, and paced the floor of my burrow, tail wrapped around my ankles. Then, when the stars blinked on and the forest hush returned, I set off toward the hollow oak. The walk felt different this time, not like wandering, not like curiosity. It felt like purpose, like being part of a thread that had been pulled gently back into a story. When I arrived, the hollow tree glowed as always, warm and golden like it had been waiting. Aurelia was placing books on the new reeds shelf, her wings moving with practiced grace. When she saw me, she tilted her head. "Thimble," she said, a twinkle in her eyes. "Come in, you're right on time." I scurried over, paws trembling a little, and opened my satchel. "I found something," I said, gently unwrapping the handkerchief. "In the roots of a tree near the glade. I think it belongs to you, to the library." I placed the scroll in her feathered wing. She turned it slowly, breath catching. "Oh." Carefully she unrolled the scroll just a little. The parchment glowed faintly at her touch. Her eyes softened. "I haven't seen this story in years," she murmured. "The wind that spoke in riddles. It was borrowed by a traveling chipmunk scribe many seasons ago. He must have lost it." "Was it important?" I asked, unsure if I'd just delivered something rare or just very dusty. Aurelia looked at me, her feathers glowing slightly in the lantern light. "Every story is important, but some, they wait longer to be heard again." She placed a gentle wing on my shoulder. "You've done something kind, Thimble, something not everyone would notice, let alone carry back." I felt warm all over, the kind of warm that starts in your chest and radiates all the way to your tail. "I didn't want it to stay lost," I said. "It felt like it needed to be home." She nodded. "And now it is." Then she did something that made my whiskers quiver with pride. She walked to the center of the library and placed the scroll on a pedestal marked "Returned with Care." Above it, a soft lantern flickered to life, a pale green glow, like mint leaves in sunlight. "Would you like to help me shelve the rest of tonight's returns?" she asked. "It's gentle work, and it's always better with company." I blinked. "Me? Help in the library?" "Yes," I said before my nerves could catch up. "I'd love to." And so, for the first time, I became part of the night library's quiet rhythm. Aurelia handed me a small wooden cart on wheels, just my size, and a list of titles, written in the soft looping script of an owl. We worked in tandem, her on the upper shelves, me scampering between mushroom stools and root-arched alcoves, tucking books into place. Each shelf had a scent: cinnamon for adventure, lavender for poetry, peppermint for stories with riddles. Some books hummed softly when shelved. Others gave a satisfied shh, like a sigh of relief. I didn't say much, but I didn't need to. I was helping, part of something. By the time we finished, the scroll I'd returned was already being copied for preservation and bound gently in silk-threaded ribbon. As I dusted off my paws and wiped the tiny smudge from my nose, Aurelia brought me a mug of thistleberry tea and a new biscuit, this one shaped like a feather. "You're always welcome to help, Thimble," she said. "The shelves like you, so do I." I ducked my head, cheeks pink. "Thank you." That night I left the hollow with the tiniest smudge of ink on my paw, the faint scent of mint and parchment in my fur, and the glowing memory of a lantern lit in honor of something I'd found, something that had been waiting for someone just like me. And I knew, this was only the beginning. The rain started as a whisper, just a gentle tapping on the canopy above my burrow, like acorns falling softly. I'd been curled up with a story about a mole who built secret tunnels to deliver dream notes, one of my favorites from the night library. The scent of damp earth drifted in, and I lit a tiny candle by my moss-padded chair. But then came the wind. It howled like a lonely flute, bending the brambles above me, rattling the edges of my door. The tapping turned to thudding, and the forest outside grew wild with motion. Twigs cracking, leaves flying, thunder rolling in deep belly-shaking rumbles. A storm. A real one. I peeked out just once and saw the sky flash silver blue, casting the woods in a momentary blur of light and shadow. I should have stayed in. It's what I always did when the forest turned fierce. Burrow deep, wrap myself in my patchwork quilt, and read under the safety of flickering candlelight. But I couldn't stop thinking of the hollow tree, the night library, Aurelia. What if she needed help? Without thinking, I wrapped my scarf tight, tucked a blanket into my satchel, and headed into the storm. The wind tossed my whiskers every which way, and rain soaked through my ears in seconds. But I pressed forward. Lanterns swayed above the path, and I followed their flicker until finally I saw it, the familiar golden glow. Only tonight it shimmered with urgency. By the time I slipped into the hollow, I was soaked from nose to tail and shivering, but I wasn't alone. The library was full, brimming with frightened, dripping animals huddled in circles on cushions and benches. Kits, pups, cubs, and grown folk, too, all looking around with wide, storm-worried eyes. The door creaked open behind me, and a mother hedgehog bustled in with her 3 little ones clinging to her. And in the center, calm and steady as ever, stood Aurelia. She looked up the moment she saw me. "Thimble," she said, her voice as warm as always despite the thunder. "Thank the stars." "I came to help," I said, already pulling the blanket from my satchel. "What can I do?" She smiled just a little and handed me a stack of dry cloths. "We've got a long night ahead. Let's make it a kind one." That's all I needed. I moved from group to group, handing out blankets and warm cloths. I relit the lanterns along the lower shelves. Some had flickered out with the drafty wind. The fox kits from Story Hour were curled together in the poetry nook, noses tucked beneath their tails, their fur sticking up in every direction. I offered them cinnamon bark tea and sat with them until they stopped shaking. In one corner, a young rabbit named Minnow sobbed quietly, scared of the thunder. I sat beside her and told her what Aurelia once told me, that stories are stronger than storms. Eventually, the library settled into a rhythm. The storm still raged outside, cracks of lightning, crashes of thunder, but inside something else was building. Warmth, togetherness, a kind of shared hush. Aurelia rose and cleared her throat. "Dear guests," she said, "tonight the wind sings its wildest songs, but we have stories to soften the sound." She looked at me. "Thimble, would you do the honors?" "Me? Read? Aloud?" I froze. I'd only read once before, quietly during shelving, but never in front of so many. But Aurelia met my eyes, and behind her, all the frightened little faces turned to me, waiting, hopeful. I nodded slowly. "Yes," I said, "I'll read." Aurelia handed me a small book with a soft green cover and golden thread binding. "The Rain That Painted Wishes," it read. I took a breath, climbed up onto the little wooden stool in the center of the room, and opened to the first page. My paws trembled, but my voice was steady. Once, in a valley where puddles shimmered with colors, the rain came not to soak, but to paint, and every wish whispered into a puddle took shape in a swirl of color. The room leaned in. Even the wind seemed to pause. I read slowly, letting the words hang like lanterns in the air. As I spoke, the little ones nestled closer to their grown-ups. Minnow stopped crying. The fox kits listened with their eyes half closed. Even the oldest animals, badgers and raccoons and tired owls, relaxed into the cushions, shoulders softening. And me? I felt like I belonged at the center of it all. Not because I was loud or brave or bold, but because I loved stories. And tonight, stories were what we all needed. When I finished the final line, and the valley shimmered with every wish it had ever held, even the smallest ones, a soft hush followed. Then came the quietest sound of all, a sigh. Dozens of them, a room breathing together. Aurelia wrapped her wing gently around my shoulders. "Well done, Thimble." My heart swelled with warmth that not even thunder could shake. As the night wore on, more stories were shared. A young mole told a tale about the stars. A turtle recited a poem about rain on lily pads. Aurelia sang a lullaby in an ancient language that sounded like wind through tall grass. Outside, the storm slowly softened. The thunder rolled farther away. Rain became a steady rhythm, more like a lullaby than a warning. And inside we were safe, curled together in a nest of words and kindness. A library that welcomed the frightened, the tired, the curious. Lanterns glowed, stories lingered in the air like mist, and I, Thimble, the quiet little field mouse, sat with a blanket on my lap and a warm mug in my paws, surrounded by others who now knew me not just as a helper, but as a reader, a storyteller. As dawn peeked through the high windows, painting the shelves in peach and gold, some of the guests began to drift off, snuggled in reading nooks and along the steps of the spiral shelf. Aurelia looked around the room, then back at me. "Thank you," she said, her voice soft, "for stepping forward tonight. The library needed you." I smiled, ears still damp, whiskers curled slightly from the warmth of the fire. I think I needed the library more, I whispered. She nodded once. That's how it works. I stayed until the last lantern dimmed and the first bird call echoed through the quiet trees. Then, slowly, I made my way back home, my heart full of light. The storm had passed. The night Aurelia gave me the title, I didn't quite believe it at first. "Thimble," she said, adjusting her half-moon glasses and tilting her head in that soft, wise way of hers. "You have the heart of a story keeper." I blinked. I do?" She nodded, wings folded gently at her sides. "It's not a title given lightly. A story keeper listens deeply, tends to tales, and understands the quiet magic of sharing them. You've done all of that, Thimble, and more." I stood on the spiral step beside her, paws clasped nervously in front of me, heart fluttering like the pages of an unread book. The library glowed with its usual golden warmth, shelves humming gently around us, as if they too agreed. "From tonight on," Aurelia said, placing a small embroidered sash across my shoulders, "you're no longer just a visitor. You are part of the library itself." The sash was made of soft moss-green velvet with tiny gold thread stitched into a leaf pattern that looked very much like the bookmark she once gave me. It fit snugly around my shoulders. Not too tight, not too grand, just right. I looked down at it, stunned. I hadn't asked for a title. I didn't need one. But it felt right, like my name had found its own story. From that moment, everything felt a little different. Not in a loud way, no trumpets or grand pronouncements, but in the quiet way that settles into your fur and makes you stand a little taller. The next time the library opened at midnight, I was there early, sweeping out the welcome nook and fluffing the moss cushions near the scroll shelves. Aurelia showed me how to check for books that hadn't been shelved yet. Some were shy and liked to linger near the storytelling chair until they were ready to go back to their proper place. I began to learn the ways of the shelves. Some responded to humming, some to soft tapping. One shelf in the back, the Wayward Wonder Tales, liked to be organized by scent rather than title. I had to sniff each book to figure out where it belonged. I didn't mind. It smelled like peppermint and pine needles, and once, oddly enough, roasted chestnuts. I tidied, arranged, and polished the lantern globes with tiny cloths stitched from thistledown. I organized the returned with care section and wrote little cards of thanks to those who brought stories home safely. But more than anything else, I welcomed. Animals would arrive, nervous or shy, eyes wide in the soft midnight light, unsure if they belonged. I knew that feeling well. So I greeted them the way I would have wanted to be greeted, with a quiet smile, a warm paw, and a gentle question. "Would you like a story tonight?" Sometimes I'd help the littlest ones choose their first book. Other times I'd guide the older guests toward the scrolls with riddles or the poetry read aloud corner. Some came just to listen. Some came to forget the storm outside. Some came to remember something they hadn't felt in a long while. And I was there, helping, listening, sometimes even reading. Yes, me, Thimble, reading. It started slowly, with short tales I already knew by heart. The Button and the Breeze, Three Wishes in a Teacup, The Badger Who Built a Boat from Dreams, little stories with big hearts. I read them with quiet care, voice growing steadier each time. One evening, Aurelia nudged me gently after I finished The Owl Who Waited for the Moon. "You know," she said, "you could write your own stories, too." I blinked. Me? Write? She gave me that look again, the one that somehow saw straight into the pocket where I kept my secret dreams. Who better? So I tried. At first, I just scribbled little tales in the corners of discarded scrolls, stories about library mice who followed glowing footprints, or hedgehogs who dreamed in chapters. Tiny things, nothing grand. But one night I tucked one of my stories, The Lantern and the Little Paw, onto the read-aloud shelf, and someone chose it. A young rabbit with big ears and bigger curiosity. She read it aloud while I sat frozen behind the poetry stack, paws trembling. But when she finished, the room sighed softly, and someone whispered, "That was lovely." My tail twitched for the next hour. From then on, I kept writing, just a little each week. Sometimes I left the scrolls unsigned. Other times I signed them simply, Storykeeper T. The title had become part of me, not something grand or heavy, but something I wore like a warm scarf on a windy day. A part of my fur now, a part of my name, Thimble the Storykeeper. The library kept changing too, as it always did. New shelves appeared, old ones shifted. The walls sometimes grew wider after a night of laughter. Once a patch of wildflowers bloomed near the entry after someone read a story about a sunlit meadow. The night library was alive in its own quiet way, and I was part of its heartbeat. One evening I arrived to find a note tucked beside my little basket near the scroll desk. It was written on petal paper and tied with lavender string. "Dear Storykeeper, thank you for reading to me when I was too scared to speak. Thank you for the tea, the blanket, and for sitting quietly when my papa was sick. I come to the library now to remember how safe that night felt. And your story about the firefly lantern made me dream again. Please never stop sharing." It was signed simply, Minnow. I held that note for a long time, longer than I meant to. I placed it in a small wooden box I keep beneath my cushion at the library, my nest of notes. It's where I tuck thank yous, kind whispers, and doodles left behind on the suggestion leaflets. They are reminders that stories matter, that I matter, that the quietest mouse can carry lanterns of light one tale at a time. And so, whenever midnight arrives and the forest hushes beneath the stars, I step through the mossy arch into the golden glow of the hollow oak. I light the lanterns, I dust the shelves, I welcome the wanderers and the wishers. I read to those who are frightened, I listen to those who've never spoken. I help the stories find their way home. And sometimes, if the night is very quiet and the air hums just right, I tell one of my own, because I am thimble, mouse, friend, helper, and now forevermore, story keeper. And that ends tonight's meditation. You're welcome to stay for a bit longer if you like. Have a beautiful night. Until next time.